In the mood for something great? Well, here comes something great. Our guest speaker. How do you go from being a monk to working for one of the most prestigious consulting companies, McKinsey & Company, and then become a venture capitalist? Well, that is the journey our guest speaker, Kamal Sarma, has taken. Kamal is one of the world's leading experts in leadership and connection. He's the CEO of Resilium, which consults for companies like Google, Facebook, PwC, Deloitte, Bank of New York, Commonwealth Bank, and I'll give you a couple more you might have actually heard of. Just kidding. They're just a few. In his spare time, he has also written 3 books: Mental Resilience, The Power of Clarity, and How to Develop the Focus of a Warrior, and The Peace of a Monk. It is a bestseller. The Leadership Leap, and The Art of Win-Win Conversations, the art science of human connection, a culmination of 11 years of research on what does it mean to truly connect with another human being. We will find out. Kamal is passionate too about youth issues. He's the co-founder of the Institute for Mental Resilience, which focuses on the prevention of youth suicide in Australia, and is currently the chair of Are You OK Day's think tank, an organisation, of course, dedicated to reducing youth suicide. And we are lucky enough to have Kamal in the house, on the screen, our screen stage. Here he comes. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't hear you clap, but let's do it anyway. Please make welcome Kamal Sarma.
Thank you very much, Amy. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be presenting today. By the way, I want to let you know I'm a Gong boy. I grew up in Shell Harbour. We lived in Cordo Heights. So I'm super, super excited to be here today. Thank you so much for telling me what is your favorite TV show. We got The Brady Bunch, Terminator, F Troop, Wizard of Oz. It brings back a lot of memories. Fantastic. Great. I've got Robin saying The Queer Eye. Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. By the way, we're going to have this very interactive right now. We got Sharon saying the monkeys. So here's my first question to you. In the chat box with a Y or an N, who thinks Amy is doing an amazing job today? Yes or no in the chat box. Just write Y or N. Let me know what you think. Look at those yeses coming in, Amy.
Next time.
Wow. There you go. Very cool. A couple of multiple Ys. Well, thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to use the word unprecedented. Yeah, I hate that word. But the world has changed. Ridiculous. It has changed dramatically. But we've changed as well. And I think, we've learned about resilience. We've learned about connection, and we've connected about community. We've changed dramatically. By the way, I'm getting a little bit fed up of webinars. There's been a lot of webinars. I look into a green dot every day. But also, I kind of think that, I'm missing coffee shops. Here's a question for you, Amy. Can you see my video okay? Can you see my video?
I can.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Good, fantastic. All right, good. All right.
You're only little, so it's helping.
Sorry, big pardon?
You're in the little box up in the top corner, so.
All right, great. All right, fantastic. But, I miss coffee shops. I miss coffee shops with a vengeance. I want to just hang out with people. I also miss this. I miss people smiling. I miss seeing the smile. And, when you see somebody smile, there's an amazing thing that happens in your brain. You get this huge dose of oxytocin and it makes you feel good. The way we work has changed. The days have seemed to merge into one. Yes or no in the chat box. In the chat box, does this resonate with you? Can you relate to this? Like, where is the weekend gone? The days and nights merge into one. So I'm getting a lot of yeses. It is, right? Like, it's a weird thing. I've got a yes with an exclamation mark. Fantastic, great. So what we found in our work is there are 2 ends of the spectrum. There are some people who are feeling incredible loneliness. And I totally get that. If you haven't seen your parents, if you haven't seen your parents are overseas or in a different area, or, your partner's in a different state, that's tough. There are some people who are overwhelmed. Totally. If you're homeschooling, it is a tough gig. Totally. I think teachers are all going to get a pay rise after this. Yes or no in the chat box. Who's had an experience of homeschooling over this period? Yes or no in the chat box. Have you had this? Have you? A lot of yeses, a few no's, a lot of yeses. It's a tough gig, right? But the biggest thing that we're seeing is uncertainty. there's a lot of uncertainty out there. And, I see it in the business world, I see it in the professional world, I see it in my personal life as well. There's a whole bunch of uncertainty. I wish there was a COVID playbook, right? There was no such thing as a COVID playbook. We've made this stuff as we've gone along. So what are the levels of resilience right now? What is it? What's the data show? So this is what the data shows. 56% of us don't get enough sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, sleep deprivation sucks. It's really, really bad for you. You need your sleep. 62% of us don't get enough exercise. We need 30 minutes of exercise, not to get six-pack abs, but just so that you feel good about yourself. 53% of us are overwhelmed with the phone calls, the texts, the emails. It's just never ending. But wait, it gets worse. 1 in 5 people would say that they're depressed. 29% of us are not overweight. That's obese. 22% of us are absolutely exhausted. Now, obviously, this is not you. This is friends of yours on another webinar somewhere. No, I'm just kidding. But it's not great, right? So these are the stats pre-COVID. What does post-COVID? What do the numbers look like? Well, mental health has doubled. Mental health issues have doubled, and it's really quite sad. Despair has tripled. We're lucky we've got jobs, or if your partner's lost a job or you've lost a job, it's a tough gig. Confusion is up 5 times. We're going through the Delta stream now. What else is out there? It is really, it's quite confusing. And, I look at all this and I think, wow. And a big interesting stat, Lifeline recorded, what was it? The highest number of calls. So I want to give you a bit of background on myself. So just want to let you know who I am and why I'm in front of you. Yes, I am a Koto Heights boy, but I was born in India. So I came to Australia when I was 4 years old. And life was great, except I was a very dorky Indian kid. My dad was a doctor. Actually, he was a doctor in Port Kembla. So I don't know if anybody's from Port Kembla. My dad used to be a doctor in Port Kembla. But anyway, I was a very dorky Indian kid until I discovered rugby union. And I got really good at rugby. By the time I was 13, I wanted to be playing for the Wallabies. And I started to play for the under-15s rep team. I could see it. I could see the statistics everywhere. I could see the newspapers. Kamal Sarma, the first ever Indian Wallaby. That was the dream. Unfortunately, there are no Indian Wallabies yet. And I know some people are laughing out there right now, which I'm not very happy about. Yes, but Indians don't play rugby. We play cricket. And my parents thought, we don't like this. So what they decided to do in their infinite wisdom is they sent me back to India, but with a twist. They decided to send me to a monastery and I became a monk for the next 7 years. I skipped high school. I did 14 hours of yoga and meditation a day for 7 years. I came back to Australia when I was 19. I wasn't allowed to go to school because I'd skipped high school. I went to TAFE. I'm not quite sure if people know what TAFE is. But then I started my corporate career. I was with McKinsey & Company. I was the head of strategy for St. George. I was the head of strategy for AMP Capital Investors. Life was great until life wasn't. And for me, what turned my life around was a big shift. And that shift was really the passing away of my child. So when my daughter passed away, my life turned around quite dramatically. And I'm always surprised how much, we think we're good, but until something bad happens to us, we struggle. And I struggled to get out of bed. I struggled with the grief. I really, really struggled. I struggled in my relationship with my wife. I struggled with my job. And I could have lost everything, and I almost did. I was lucky I had something in my background to pull me out. And I went back to my monastic training to pull me out. I wrote a book about it called Mental Resilience. And for some reason, it got onto the Oprah magazine. And that's how this whole journey started. But that's not the full story. What my full story is through this process, I discovered my calling. Now, a lot of people a lot of people will tell you about your career, and I know there's a mentorship program, which is great. They tell you about your career, and I know we've got representatives from the business school here at Wollongong, which is fantastic. But what I didn't understand was my calling, and I discovered my calling, and my calling was around helping kids. And in particular, I do a lot of work around the prevention of youth suicide. The sad thing is the Illawarra region has a very high incidence of youth suicide. And I'm really, really privileged to be the chair of Are You OK's think tank. Quick question, Y or N in the chat box, have you heard of Are You OK? Have you heard of Are You OK in the chat box? Were you involved? Wow, a lot of yeses, fantastic, great. That is great. Now, I just want to get you to cast your memory back about, 10, 15 years ago. Are You OK didn't exist. It wasn't okay to talk about mental health. And I think what Are You OK and all other organizations like Lifeline, Beyond Blue have done an amazing job of bringing this to, getting this to light. What I do want to do is though talk about the word shift. And I think we're going through a global shift at the moment. And I hope that we don't forget these great lessons we learn. And I think, and if you've got a piece of paper, you might want to write this down. I think SHIFT is an acronym. And SHIFT stands for Situations Helping Individuals Fundamentally Transform. It's how do you shift in your life? And sometimes you need a big shift to change your life, to change something in your life, to get more resilience. Here is the problem. If you don't fundamentally transform in your life, you get this. And we don't want this. We want to make sure that we transform this. Now, when people introduce me, they say, oh, here's Kamal Sarma. He's an expert on resilience or human connection. Unfortunately, that's wrong.
Did you write that intro yourself?
Yeah, no, my speaker's muted. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, no, I'm not an expert. I am a student. I'm a student of this stuff. And I've been trying to learn it for quite a few years. Thanks, Amy. I appreciate that. That's so cool. I'm so glad you can hear me still. And look, I want to share with you some ideas around being a student of resilience and human connection. And we think resilience is a function of three things. The first thing is direction. You need to know where you're going in life or in a different stage of life. You need to have the right capability set. And lastly, you need the right energy. You need to bring the right energy into your life. Now, there's a whole bunch of subcomponents of this that I'm not going to go into today. I want to pay particular attention to a few things. But what the thing is, especially with resilience and human connection, sometimes we know what to do. We know what to do, but we don't do it. But it requires a shift in our life to change. And maybe COVID, this period, might be a shift for you to change things. So I want to ask some questions. Amy, all right, I'm going to get you on the line. What do you think is better for you? Everybody, let me know in the chat box. What do you think is better for you? Number one or number two? And please don't ask what flavor they are.
Better for my mental health or better for my body?
For your body, come on. You're in sports.
Oh dear. I'll have to go with two, like most of our audience.
Oh, thank gosh. Thank gosh. All right, so we're getting a lot of twos here. Nobody's asked the flavor of the chips yet, which is great. Okay. Question number two. What is better for you, going for a walk or vegging out and watching Netflix on the sofa? What do you think?
It's about perspective, right? Because if you've had a long day, sometimes you just want to lay down and go to sleep. But again,
okay, cool.
For our mental health.
Amy, you're making this more. Aren't you supposed to make this easier for me?
I'm sorry.
Oh, we've got David Fuller who's a two. Sharon's a no-brainer number one. Okay.
Yeah, see, Dave,
exercise on.
Get on the couch, people.
Okay, last one. Okay, what's better for you? Sweet sugary drinks or wine? Please don't make me choose wine. All right, or a glass of water.
What's wrong with you?
All right, cool. Okay, so here is the deal, right? We know what to do. A lot of the times we know what to do, but we don't do it. All right, here's a question for you. Who knows somebody that can't stop smoking or can't get to the weight they want to, with or without whiskey? Pascal's, I love it. Yvonne's like, yes or no, yes or no. Okay, we've got people. Okay, I love it. So a lot of people know, some obviously not ourselves, other people, right? So here's the deal. Smoking was once upon a time so cool. Look at me, I am smoking. And now there is no doubt that it's not good for us. There is no doubt that it's good for us. And here's the thing, my wife is a doctor, and my dad's been a doctor. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough. But here's what we see, right? Some people can't give up smoking. They can't give up smoking. They can't give up smoking until they have a triple bypass, and then they give up smoking. And so I used to smoke at my desk. There you go. There you go. So here's the thing. I know people introduce me as a motivational speaker. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm sorry. I'm an irritational speaker. My job is to irritate you. Amy, have I irritated you yet?
No, do you know what is irritating me though? The people that have turned their cameras off. Should we get onto those people? Should we call them out? Should we out them? Karen Walker.
Okay, I'm going to let you do that.
Johnny Armstrong, you are like a serial offender here. We're going to learn what happens when people irk. Come on, Kamal. You're not irritating.
Okay, all right. Put on your camera.
Carry on.
Okay, thanks. So, my job today is to irritate you, and I do want to irritate you, but then also to influence you a little bit. So irritation and influence, we need to do both. So I want to talk about a big issue, and that is stress and how stress depletes us. Most people don't understand how stressed they are. I repeat that. Most people don't understand how stressed they are. I believe that stress is the asbestos of our century. I repeat that. Stress is the asbestos of our century. I've termed a new word. Amy, you're going to love this. Stress toss. Do you like that? It's stress and asbestos together. It's like a new mint that you shouldn't be eating. Do you like that, Amy?
I do like that. I'm wondering if it's going to make the word list for 2021.
I don't know about that. So here's the thing.
The dictionary. The word list for 2021.
In the dictionary? Okay, look, there are 3 types of stress I want to get you to talk about. Elena, I'm freaking stress tossed out. I love it. There are 3 types of stress I want to talk about. The first type of stress is what I call conscious stress. Conscious stress is stress headaches, tight neck and shoulders, when you feel this, stomach aches. This is bad, but it's not as bad as the other 2 I'm going to talk about. And this is the size of a tennis ball. Okay, in the chat box, let me know, what have you experienced? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So in the chat box, let me know. Amy's camera comment. Well, 1, 2, Amy do the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, Amy, that's the one. So we've got a few 2s. All of the above by Rebecca. Alex Crompton is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Marissa is a 1 and 2. Amy makes me stressed. John, I'm so sorry.
I'm not.
Michael Stephen is a 4.
We need to have fun.
Grace McCarthy is a 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. Karen Walker is a 1 and 2. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is conscious stress. That's bad, but it's not as bad as the next 2. The next one is what we call subconscious stress. Subconscious stress really, really sucks because you don't know that you're doing it. Have you seen people do this? Have you people seen, Amy, do you see people shake their legs continually? Have you seen that at all?
Shake their heads at me a lot, especially now. Like up there on the screen. I am watching you, trust me.
Are you watching it?
Tapping or clicking the pen.
Tapping, clicking pen, yeah. So this is what we call subconscious stress. Subconscious stress is leg shaking, biting your bottom lip. I do that. People bite their fingernails. Now, subconscious stress would be the size of the floor in the building. If conscious stress is the size of a tennis ball, subconscious stress is in terms of how bad it is for you. The next one is even worse, and we're seeing a lot of this right now. And this is what we call unconscious stress. In terms of your resilience, unconscious stress is one of the worst things that you can do. So this is, you're tired when you wake up and you go, what the heck? I've had 6 or 7 hours sleep. Why am I so exhausted? Or you wake up in the middle of the night at 1 o'clock in the morning and you go, ding, and you're bright as a bunny. Or you've got these tight jaw muscles. Now that is the size of a whole building. So conscious stress is the size of a tennis ball. Subconscious stress is the floor of the building. Unconscious stress with this size of the whole building. All right, I want to check in here. What have you experienced? What have you experienced? We have a few red wines here. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. What have you experienced in the chat box? Let me know. Alex Crompton. Okay, we've got 6s as well. A lot of 2s. Yeah, a lot of 2s. A lot of 4s. No, okay, so I have to share with you, Amy, my kryptonite is salt and vinegar chips at about 9 o'clock at night.
I ordered are like waking up tired, they're waking up in the middle of the night and they're craving carbohydrates. It's just menopause. And
it's stress.
Out there right now. I see you laughing. I know you get this. But thank you. If it's stress, we can get rid of it, right?
That is true. That is very true. And it's a big one because most people only understand conscious stress. And you've seen this, like people who are really, really healthy, exercise really well, and they suddenly get some stress-related disorder. It's because they control their conscious stress, but the subconscious and unconscious stress is the stuff that we really need to be concerned about. So don't get me wrong. We are designed physiologically and psychologically for acute stress, but we're not designed for chronic stress. So the kind of stress you're designed for is long lows and go, holy crap, there's a lion, run away. That's what you're designed for. And then long lows again, right? What we experience is long sustained highs with occasional temporary lows when you go on holidays. Quick question with anybody. Anybody experience being sick on the first day of holidays? Yes or no? In the chat box, just let me know. Have you ever experienced? Oh, a lot of yeses. A lot of yes. Oh, a lot of yeses. Yeah, migraines. Elena, fantastic. A few yeses and few nos. All right. So how do you think about stress? I want you to think about stress, and this is really important from a resilience perspective. So you want to think about it two ways. Well, sorry, this main way. You've got to think about it like a bathtub. So here's the metaphor. Imagine your bathtub is filling up at 5 times X, and the drain in the bathtub is going 1 times X. What's going to happen to the bathtub? In the chat box, please let me know. What's going to happen to the bathtub after a while? Tell me what's going to happen to the bathtub after a while. Please let me know in the chat box. What's going to happen? All right, we're getting a lot of answers. A lot of answers. Sorry, I don't know as I take showers, John. Okay, great. All right. Okay, John, I'm going to ask you to assume here. So, Amy, did you say something? Call the plumber. Pascal, fantastic.
I just think they're clever. They've worked it out straight away.
You're right. You're right. That's my Friday night bath, all right? Well, so here's what's going to happen. It's going to overflow. And the two things you need to be concerned about are 2 hormones called cortisol and adrenaline. This is good, but too much of it overflows. And the reason why you're waking up in the middle of the night, the reason why you're tired when you wake up or crave carbohydrates is your body needs to adjust to these cortisol and adrenaline levels. And we need to be conscious of this. Now, a lot of people say, look, I exercise, which is great, but you need to learn how to switch off the tap as well. So to be resilient, we need to do 3 things. We need to make sure we change our mindset. We need to make sure we update our skill set, and we make sure we have the right tools to deal with this level of stress. Unfortunately, people don't do it. So I want to now make a shift to my presentation, and I think that resilience is the outcome. But what really deals with it, how we deal with it is connection. Connection is the process. And there are 4 connections I want to talk about. The first one is personally connected, being connected to yourself. Do you feel connected to yourself? Sometimes we don't. That's when we eat too much, we drink too much, we fight too much. People connection, connecting to the people that you care about and you love the most. The next one is purpose connection, connecting to a higher purpose, something that drives your life. And the last one is planet connection, connecting to the planet. And I love the fact now that, we do acknowledgement to country, because I know Indigenous cultures have such a powerful connection to the planet, and that creates resilience. What I want to do, though, is I want to talk very briefly about people connection. So here's what the data shows. People find relationships challenging. Go figure. People find internal relationships challenging within their business. They find external relationships challenging with their clients, their suppliers, and people find intimate communication challenging and relationships with their partner, their kids. So here's what the data shows. 80% of work-related stress comes from internal team issues. What? So most people love their jobs. They just can't stand the people they work with. Now, obviously not you, friends of yours. 49% of workers would rather quit than have a conversation about a workplace issue. 49% of workers would rather quit than have a conversation about a workplace issue. You can get a 30 to 40% uplift in productivity if you just resolve internal communication issues. When we work with our clients, once we resolve this, it's amazing how people get out of their own way. 50% of marriages end in divorce in the first 7 years. This is from the Gottman Institute. But this is a really interesting statistic. Couples wait on average 6 years of being unhappy before getting help on how to communicate. Go figure. Here's another one. 87% of people struggle to give feedback to their peers, to the people that they work with. And here's the weirdest fact of all. 91% of people struggle to give feedback to their leaders. What? 91% of people struggle to give feedback to their leaders. Let me give you a little test here. Does anybody know who this man is? Yes or no? In the chat box. Do you know who this man is? Name him if you want. Yeah, he's Mr. Bezos. Okay, we've got a lot of people know who he is. Great. He's just been on the Brooke. He's Jeff Bezos. He's the CEO of Amazon. So imagine this scenario, right? Imagine this scenario. He does a presentation. He makes a number of mistakes. Yeah, imagine that scenario. Second scenario, new intern joins the organization, does a presentation, make the same number of mistakes. Question for you. Who gets the most feedback? Number one or number two? In the chat box, let me know. Who gets the most feedback? Oh, wow. Okay. A lot of twos, right? A lot of twos. And I was looking at this data and I was thinking, wow, I would say the same thing. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Because what we know is the more senior you get, the less feedback you get. I'll repeat that. The more senior you get, the less feedback you get. And I kind of thought about this and I thought, wow, what we know is that connection creates resilience. That's really important. Connection creates resilience. What we also know is that feedback creates connection. And I want to share a story with you. So I've been really passionate about resilience in kids. And I was looking at this data and I thought, wow, that's really interesting. Looking at my kids and how do I build resilience in them? So what I've been doing is I've been asking, so this is my son, when he's about 7 years old. I asked my kids since about 7 or 8 years old, how I'm going as a dad, whether I'm doing well as a dad or if I could do better. Question, thank you, Sharon. Here's my question for you. In the chat box, please let me know, did your parents ask you for feedback on how they were going as parents? Yes or no? Yes or no? Did they ask? Never. Okay, no, a lot of no's. And I want to share this with you because this has literally changed my life. No, Karen B. Craig's laughing, Craig and Anna.
I'm with you, Craig and Anna.
Elena, I would have gotten a smack. And I think that is really important. And I want to share this with you. And I'm going to share some feedback with you around only competitive game of cricket. All right. Fantastic. I want to share some story because I think it's really important. We all know we have kids. Actually, question in the chat box. Do you have kids? Or do you have grandkids? Yes or no in the chat box. Let me know, or their ages if you're interested as well. Fantastic, great. Nephews, fantastic. Okay, both and a dog. Awesome, great, fantastic. Fur kids.
Easy to train though, right?
That is true. 21-year-old son. Oh, lovely. So I want to share some feedback with you, and I think this is relevant in all our relationships. It's not just with kids. So I asked, how am I going as a dad? And he said, Dad, you don't spend much time at home. This is when I travel. So I travel quite a bit. And I said, look, I travel a lot. How do you feel about me not being at home? And he thought about it for a while and said, Dad, Mom's a really good mom. She looks after us. Ouch, that hurt. But then I said, is there anything I could do better? And he said, Dad, look, when you're traveling, we know that you do some good work with Are You Okay? And some other stuff that we do internationally, with kids. And he said, Dad, we know you do some good stuff. And he said, what can I do better? And he said, Dad, he's really excited. He said, Dad, yeah, do you remember the time we went to the Gold Coast? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, Dad, do you remember you took a call from a client? And I said, yeah, I remember that. And there's certain calls that you get from clients that you just don't forget. Amy, have you ever had one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. And so he told me, it was really interesting. He said, Dad, I'd prefer you to be not with us and not with us, but to be with us and not with us. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. What he was trying to tell me is that what he did is he wanted my presence. And I think one of the things we can give to people is our presence, even if we can't give time. Even now, we can give our presence at home, on a phone call, on a web chat. But what we found is that connection requires a feedback culture. And if there's one thing I'd like you to take back is making sure that you create a feedback culture within your family, but within your organizations as well. But you can't do that unless you create an appreciation culture. I'll repeat that. You can't create a feedback culture without creating an appreciation culture. And that is the most important thing that I've learned after years and years of research. And we've spent some time, I've been passionate about learning about human connection. And in the research, we spent some time with some amazing human beings. The first group of people we spent time with was palliative care nurses. What we learned from palliative care nurses was just absolutely amazing. They're a special group of human beings. Here's a question for you, though. What do you think we learned from palliative care nurses in the chat box? What do you think we learned from palliative care nurses? What do you think? In the chat box, please write. What do you think was the biggest lesson we learned around Janine the power of listening? Thank you, Gillian. Listening, fantastic. Compassion, Rebecca Coombs, thank you so much. Listening, how to listen, the importance of how to make the difference. Empathy, yes. Neil, fantastic. Connection and listening. Resilience, valuing time, valuing what matters. Kat, you're correct. Gratitude, Robin Dawson. Acceptance, Pascal. Thank you. Very, very powerful. Respect, compassion, and dedication, Vicky. Look, we've learned all of these things. You're all right. But one of the things we learned from this very, very special group of people, and I've talked about this, is presence. If there's one thing that you can make you more connected with another human being, is presence. But the challenge is we're so freaking addicted to our phones and our WhatsApp and our Twitters. It is unbelievable. We spent time with neuroscientists to really understand what happens in a person's brain when you connect with another human being. And what happens is magic happens. When you can connect with another human being, ladies and gentlemen, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. It's a beautiful thing to see. We crave connection so much. We also spent time with FBI negotiators, and what we found from them was just amazing. And what we learned from them is, how do you speak in such a way where the other person does not hear judgment? I'll repeat that: when the other person does not hear judgment. And people need to make sure that we don't hear judgment. Here is a paradox, and this really blew us away. Here is the paradox. Wait for it. We were never taught how to communicate or connect. Boom. I'll repeat that. We were never taught how to communicate or connect. We were never taught this. What we do is we pick it up subconsciously through our environment. I'm going to show you a short video clip. It's a very, very short video clip. There is a little bit of language that may not be appropriate for kids, so please just lower the volume if you are got kids running around. I wanted to show you this very, very quick.
That was Robert, wasn't it? I thought you two were friends.
No, he's a bloody idiot.
Don't you dare use words like that, Michelle. How do you pick up such filth?
Bloody idiots! Why don't you look where you're going? Better get in the car.
Okay, so here's my question for you. Have you ever noticed you're speaking, and as you're speaking, your parents are coming out of your mouth? Yes or no in the chat box. Amy, have you ever experienced this?
Yes, and the older it gets, the more it happens.
All right. Are your kids becoming like you as well?
They're already like me. God, they're so
fantastic. Great. Yes, in Italian. John, I love it. Often, all the time. Nikki Cole. Never. Oh, fantastic. Great. Never, ever. Oh, fantastic. I love it. So here's what I want to share with you. And here's what the research shows around resilience. Between the ages of 0 and 3, a child picks up 50% of their inner dialogue. I repeat, 50% of the way they speak to themselves. By the time a child is 7 years old, they have picked up 80% of their inner dialogue, the way they speak to themselves. What we know is that this 80%, 50% is amazing. That inner dialogue can either be empowering or it can be disempowering. I'll repeat that. It can be empowering or it can be disempowering. What the research shows, and this is really sad is that young girls as young as 5 and 6 years old are looking in the mirror and not liking what they see. That inner dialogue is getting deeply entrenched at that level. What we know for boys is that inner dialogue of not being good enough, the Facebook, the Instagram, it's making them feel less good about themselves. And we know that is a predictor of addiction, be it alcohol or drug addiction. And I know the Illawarra region, unfortunately, has an issue with this, and we have to be able to get in early around this stuff. So, oh wow, I'm looking at my time and my time's almost up. So I do want to finish up on, whenever I do these sessions, people say, well, give us a tip and a tool, the tool set piece. And people, what's a quick tip that can help us? And I want to share this with you. I hate tips. I'll tell you why. Because there's enough tips and tools and hacks. What I'm interested in is mastery. And if there's anything I've done is irritated you today a little bit, I'm hoping that I've irritated you a little bit today, to choose mastery around human connection, making sure that we can, making sure that we can really connect with another human being. And I want to finish on this, if I could. I want you to stop listening to people. I'll repeat that. I want you to stop listening to people. I want you to stop listening to your partner, to your kids, to your clients, to your colleagues. Are you ready for that? Amy, have I upset you already?
No, I really like that piece of advice.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay. Amy, I'm going to ask, John saying that my wife says I do that all the time. All right. I'll tell you what I mean. So I'm going to share a conversation with you. So this is the conversation between me and my wife. So she says, you are not listening to me. I say in my infinite wisdom, yes, I am. She says, no, you're not. I say, yes, I am. Okay, in the chat box, please. Who's ever experienced a conversation like this? Yes or no? In the chat box. Have you heard a conversation like this? Have you participated in a conversation like this? Yes or no? In the chat box. Let me know. Amy, have you ever come across a conversation like this? Yeah, with my kids.
This is my kid. I told you.
Your kids.
No, you didn't. You're not listening to me. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am. But you're still not doing it. I don't. Help me out.
I love it. So Keith is saying you called me at home earlier. Yes, Keith, I bugged your home. Your microphone was on. No, I'm kidding. Lost with my wife, John Armstrong. So I'm going to put this context, and this conversation changed my life. So we're in intensive care at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. We're in the same intensive care where our first child had passed away. Our third child was in a humidity crib. I had this conversation with my wife. And our kid is not doing very well. And she walks out. And I think, what the heck? Here is the person I love the most in one of the most intense times of my life. Why can I not connect with her? And this is the conversation that kind of triggered off almost coming up to almost 20 years of research. And after this 20 years of research, I know, what have we found out? So I'll tell you. And this is it. Our job is to more than just listen, but it's to make others feel heard. And it is such an important skill. Is what our job is to do is to make another person feel heard. When you can do that with your child, with your partner, with your colleague, with your client, that's when magic happens. And I know I don't want it to sound like a cliche, because it's not. It's taken us 20 years to learn how to do this. But what we know is that people have rules for feeling heard, and they change by age, they change by culture, they change by profession, they change by gender, they change by position, just to name a few. Here's what we do though. We assume that our rules for feeling heard are the same as the other person. And that could be further from the truth. What we need to do is we need to be curious around people's rules for feeling heard. So I'm almost finishing up for time. So I do want to finish up on a few takeaways. Please, if I've irritated you enough, I really want you to understand how stressed you are. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, if you're getting up tired, something's not quite right. So, once again, I'm a monk. This is not unbiased advice. I would suggest to meditate. Mindfulness practice is very powerful. But the most important thing is stop filling the bathtub. You can exercise, You can do all this stuff, but make sure you don't fill the bathtub. Number 2, and this focus on connection, not just interconnection. We live such an interconnected world with Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on emails and stuff like that. Create an appreciation culture in your teams, at work. I think that's one of the most magical things you can do. What we've noticed is those organizations that have created a appreciation culture have really been much more resilient and really thrived. Create a feedback culture, but you can't create a feedback culture unless you create an appreciation culture. There's a quote that Steve Jobs says, and I've been in venture capital a lot in IT in Silicon Valley, and he's like a god. When you talk about nobody goes against Steve Jobs, and he's got this quote: "Let's make a dent in this universe." And I think that's a lot of crock. I don't think you can make a dent in the universe. The universe is huge. We're tiny. There are multiple. It just goes on and on. It's expanding. But here's my belief. My belief is you can be somebody else's universe. And that's really important. And what that requires is the ability to be present. It's the ability to truly connect and make them feel heard, not just listen to them. That's just so overrated. Just really, truly, and make them feel heard. I'm going to share my details with you. I'm on LinkedIn, so if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm going to put my LinkedIn details in the chat box as well. We have a volunteer program that we are teaching kids tonight, kids on how to be resilient. If you'd like to become a volunteer, please do so. It's being stalled a little bit because of COVID, but we're on Facebook as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. I am so grateful. I'm super excited. The fact that, this is my hometown. I'm super, super excited. I couldn't believe when I got this gig. I did. Oh, by the way, I was married in the Novotel. So we got married in the Novotel. And yeah, I know, right? So I was thinking, how cool was that? I was going to come and do it. So Elena's married in Novotel, and there's a lot of people there. Fantastic. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity today. If there's anything that we can do from a community perspective, we do a lot of pro bono work in the community. We're doing a lot of work in the Newcastle area at the moment because they've got a high rate, but we would be super, super excited to help you at all. Amy, do we have
we're going to have some questions. Yeah, we are. Yeah. Guys, if you want to use the chat box to ask a few questions, we'll get through them. But I'm going to kick this off because I have so much to say after that. Learned so much. But I am really curious about one thing. You went from rugby union to monkhood. Why? And then why did you leave?
Great question. So the reason why I was sent to the monastery, the reason why I sent to the monastery is my mum and dad saw me. In Australia how you get really good, when you get good at sports, you get very popular. So I went from this dorky Indian kid to this rugby girl hungry fiend. My parents decided, okay, you're not playing cricket, you're not studying, we're going to send you to a monastery. So that's why I went. Why did I leave? For 2 reasons, Amy. Number 1 is the food is crap. And number 2 is celibacy. So celibacy and food.
So you're like most men, fill your tummy, fill other things, and you're happy. Very good. I like it. Does anyone else have questions they want to type in the box? I'm having a look. I can't see any, but yes, Mick, the frat probably.
So I've put in my LinkedIn details. If you'd like to contact me, please do so as well. So.
Any other questions from anyone else? I do have one more. Oh, here we go. How do we get involved to be a volunteer?
Fantastic. So if you go to, if you hit me up on LinkedIn, we have a group of volunteers. And what we do is we train you up on how to work with young people on making sure that you can make them feel heard. We've got a program called Captivate the Future, which teaches kids resilience, self-esteem, and self-confidence through
public speaking. Should we send our kids to the monastery? There's my next question. Especially after schooling, right?
That's a great question. No, don't do that. Don't do that. The food is crap and you don't get a bed and you have to have cold showers in the morning and it's a tough life. It's a very tough life, actually. It's I joke about it now, but I found it really, really tough.
There's two questions coming through. So the first one is, how do you create a culture of continuous appreciation? And I'm guessing that
That's
means
a really good question.
A brown nose.
So here's the funny thing. Australian society is we're quite peculiar in one way. And it's because of the tall poppy syndrome. What we have noticed in the work that we do, people say one or two things. Number one is, why do I have to show them appreciation? They're just doing their job. Do you get that? Yeah. So it's like, that's number one. Number two is that most people don't know how to show appreciation. And it's because if I say, Amy, good job, well done, you go, yeah, what do you want from me? So there's two things. One is a cultural thing, and the other one is a technique thing and a skills piece. So my most important, if you want a tip, is obviously be sincere, but that sounds cliched. But to show true appreciation is a real skill. And unfortunately, we have been manipulated by other people saying good job or showing appreciation, and they go, yeah, what do you want? So we have to counter those two things. So I would say make sure that you show appreciation in a sincere way, but be as specific when you're giving the appreciation as possible.
That's about being a little bit vulnerable too, isn't it?
It's a big part of being vulnerable. And vulnerability is a scary thing for most people.
Yeah. What is this? There is a poisonous sense that you have to give equal praise and appreciation to everyone. How do we counter that?
Well, that's a big
Lisa, you clearly haven't been drinking tonight. You're way too deep. There's two things. I would create the distinction between appreciation and recognition. And so those would be I would separate those two out. So yes, I don't think so if people need feedback. So here's the thing though. When you have a high appreciation culture, you also build a high feedback culture. If you want enhanced performance, and I think, Amy, in your sports area and stuff like that, you'll notice that you're building that culture. You don't have to give it. If you're asking for feedback or people for asking for feedback, then it hasn't become what we call a psychologically safe culture. So once you can get that psychological safety, then people are more likely to accept, receive, and give feedback. Here's the weird thing. Most organizations will teach you how to give feedback. Very few organizations will teach you how to receive feedback. I think one of the first things you've got to do on induction is teach people how to accept feedback. Feedback's a great learning tool, I think, personally. Yeah. Well, as there's no more questions, ladies and gentlemen, can we please put our hands together? You can just do an air clap or a shaky. I don't mind. Just let Kamal know he's loved. Actually, I know how to do this. Kamal's just taught me something. In the chat box, ladies and gentlemen, can you please let me know with a yes or a no if you thought that was wonderful and say thank you. See, look at that.
Thank you so much. Oh, look at all these yeses. Amy, sister from another mister. How we go?
I know, we're learning from each other. It's so wonderful. As we go
thank you so much.
Can I say thank you so much for sharing your trials and tribulations, for coming out on top, for diving into the data, for putting the L in shift, because I can't imagine what that would be otherwise, being presence. Your presence being our present. Thank you for the lessons learned. Watch out, bosses. There's a big There's a big feedback loop coming your way, big bosses. Make others feel heard and be their universe. And you have done that for us tonight. So on behalf of the Connection, Kamal, thank you so much for joining us and imparting all of your wisdom. And I will leave you with saying, a wise monk once said, well, actually, you're the only wise monk I've ever met, the only monk I've ever met, let's be honest. If there's no struggle in it, there's nothing worth remembering. So I think they're your words. Thank you so much for tonight. I really wish I had one of those like radio sound cheer, 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 cheer things. So ladies and gentlemen, if you can just shake your hands so the camera and the little gallery there starts moving, and we'll know that Kamal really knows that you appreciate him and has been heard tonight. Thank you so much, Kamal.
Thank you. Peace, everybody. See you later. Stay safe.